When Princess Catherine stepped into the East Garden that morning, few could predict the storm that was quietly brewing behind palace walls. Her calm statement about duty and legacy rippled through Britain, but while the world focused on royal celebrations, another story was about to seize the spotlight, one that the palace had spent years trying to silence. Andrew Looney, the acclaimed royal historian best known for his meticulous research on Britain's aristocracy, has broken his silence. The man once dismissed as a sensationalist now claims he's uncovered documents, testimonies, and sealed financial files that could upend everything the public thought it knew about Prince Andrew, and by extension, the royal institution itself. His words were measured, his tone deliberate. We've only seen the surface of this story. For 4 painstaking years, Looney had been piecing together fragments of evidence, archived communications, redacted legal statements, even correspondence between royal representatives and foreign business figures. What began as a conventional biography soon turned into something far darker, a story buried beneath layers of secrecy, privilege, and political protection. Looney's book, The Rise and Fall of the House of York, was never meant to stir controversy. It was intended to document the Duke of York's public life, his achievements, duties, and family legacy. But as the historian dug deeper, the narrative shifted. Behind the polished speeches and ceremonial appearances, he found traces of deals that didn't belong in diplomatic records, hidden transfers, confidential favors, and transactions that seemed to serve more personal interests than national ones. When Looney submitted his manuscript to publishers, entire sections vanished overnight. Legal teams combed through every page, flagging names, numbers, and accounts that were deemed too sensitive to print. It wasn't because they were false. Looney later explained, was because they were true enough to be dangerous. For a time, his warnings went unheard. The book launched quietly, met with polite applause and minimal press. But the tables turned when Virginia Gifford's posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, reignited global outrage and forced the palace back under the microscope. Suddenly, the pages Looney had been forced to hide were no longer theory. They were context. Looney spoke again, this time with the quiet certainty of a man who had waited years to be believed. "They called me a gossip writer," he said, "but the evidence is catching up." And evidence there was: reports of misused royal funds, unexplained overseas trips, and a growing web of connections that stretched far beyond Buckingham's gilded corridors. Requests for files under Britain's Freedom of Information Act were repeatedly denied, often with vague explanations about national interest. To Looney, that phrase became a code word, not for security, but for secrecy. "Our history is being rewritten by those who control access to it," he said grimly. Prince Andrew's story is only one chapter of that cover-up. But what disturbed Looney the most wasn't what he found in documents. It was what people refused to say. Former staff members suddenly declined interviews. Ex-aides who once agreed to speak went silent overnight. One of them, he recalls, warned him quietly, "You're touching the untouchable." Still, Looney pressed on. He tracked down financial correspondences linked to Andrew's years as the UK's special trade envoy, positions meant to strengthen British commerce abroad but, according to Looney, also opened doors to unofficial arrangements. The historian's investigations hinted at offshore networks, discreet gifts, and personal negotiations cloaked under the language of diplomacy. His sources described intermediaries acting on behalf of the Duke, meetings where introductions blurred with transactions. Some of this information never made it into the original book. Lawyers warned that certain names, particularly foreign financiers and royal affiliates, were legally untouchable without direct proof. Looney conceded then, but now, with new material surfacing, he says he won't hold back. His next edition, he promises, will contain everything that was once redacted: the financial decay, the moral collapse, and the institutional silence that protected it all. He ends interviews with the same haunting phrase, "There's still much more to come." And behind those words lies an unspoken question: how far does the protection of the crown truly go? When the first leaks of Looney's suppressed material began to circulate, the mood inside Buckingham Palace shifted from anxiety to quiet panic. For years, the Duke of York's scandals had been treated as a problem of reputation, not revelation. But this time was different. These weren't rumors, they were records. As Looney's interviews spread across global media, calls for transparency grew louder. Questions once dismissed as gossip were now being asked in Parliament. The palace, known for its silence in times of crisis, could no longer rely on its usual defense, discretion. Every move was being dissected. Every word from the royal press office sounded rehearsed, and every attempt at damage control seemed to deepen public suspicion. Then came the announcement that would shake the institution to its core. At exactly 7:00 p.m. on a Friday evening, the palace issued a statement. Prince Andrew would relinquish his title as the Duke of York. The timing was strategic. late enough to blunt the weekend headlines, early enough to appear decisive. But insiders say it wasn't a gesture of goodwill, it was an ultimatum. Behind closed doors, King Charles had reached his limit. For months, advisors had begged him to act, warning that public patience was running out. Prince William, often described as cautious and diplomatic, reportedly took a harder stance. To him, reforming the monarchy meant confronting its own shadows, and that meant facing Andrew. It wasn't personal anymore, said one aide. It was survival. Officially, the statement framed the move as Andrew's voluntary decision, made to protect the dignity of the crown. But those who witnessed the internal discussions tell a different story. A tense confrontation between a king trying to protect his reign and a brother clinging to what little dignity he had left. Charles, sources say, was torn between compassion and duty. He wanted to act as a father, one insider revealed, but he had to rule as a king. Still, even this symbolic act, stripping a title, did little to quell public outrage. Newspapers called it too little too late. Members of Parliament demanded stronger action. One headline summed up the national mood in 6 words: "Why is he still living free?" The controversy soon turned to Royal Lodge, Andrew's sprawling estate within Windsor Great Park. Reporters discovered that despite losing his titles and privileges, he was still residing there under a secretive, decades-long lease. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A disgraced prince, stripped of honor, but still enjoying royal comfort. The public reaction was merciless. If this were any ordinary man, wrote one commentator, he'd be in court, not on crown land. Inside the palace, pressure mounted. Prince William reportedly described the situation as "horn insult to the public." His frustration was shared by younger aides, who believed the monarchy could no longer afford the old methods of silence and endurance. But King Charles hesitated. Evicting his brother would ignite a personal feud with global visibility. It would mean turning a family crisis into a constitutional spectacle. For a ruler who prized stability, the risk was immense. Yet, even silence carries a cost. The more the palace delayed, the more critics accused it of hypocrisy. For every word of reform, there was an image of Andrew riding horses at Windsor. A reminder that privilege still protected him. And then, the real explosion came. Not through a statement, but through a single damning leak. Just when the palace believed the storm was finally calming, a single email tore through the illusion of control. At first, it appeared on an anonymous online forum, a leaked document with no context. But within hours, major British outlets had verified its authenticity. It was real, and it was explosive. The email, allegedly sent by Prince Andrew himself, instructed one of his taxpayer-funded protection officers to gather personal information about Virginia Gifford, his most outspoken accuser. Her date of birth, social security number, background details, everything that could be used to discredit her. What was once dismissed as rumor now had digital proof. For the royal household, it wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was an abuse of power. Senior palace staff were said to be in shock. Even the most loyal defenders couldn't find an excuse. This wasn't gossip or speculation anymore. It was a royal using state resources to wage a personal war. A follow-up leak revealed another chain of messages between Andrew and a communications officer named Perkins. Their tone was casual, even confident, as though such actions were normal, almost routine. "We'll find what we need," one line read. This will end her credibility. When journalists traced the metadata, it pointed straight to official palace servers. Suddenly, what had been a scandal of morality became a question of legality. American legal experts stepped in, warning that if the allegations were true, the prince could face charges in the United States for data misuse and privacy violation, crimes that carry serious prison sentences. The idea of a royal figure facing U.S. prosecution was unprecedented. Diplomats were quietly alarmed. Inside Buckingham, panic returned, this time laced with disbelief. King Charles was briefed immediately. He was, according to sources, furious but measured. The palace began internal reviews, while public relations teams scrambled to craft statements that could contain the blast. But no statement could undo the damage. The narrative had shifted permanently, from scandal to potential criminal misconduct. Prince William, insiders say, lost all patience. This was the last straw, a senior aide admitted. He saw it as betrayal, not of family, but of everything the crown stands for. The palace's silence only deepened suspicion. Social media erupted with outrage, hashtags calling for investigation flooded platforms, and the global press dissected every word the royal family didn't say. And Andrew, he vanished from view. No comment, no denial, no acknowledgement. His silence spoke louder than any defense. For those close to the palace, the realization was grim. This wasn't just another royal controversy. It was the moment the monarchy's myth of control finally cracked. Behind closed doors, officials began asking an unthinkable question. Could a prince's private defiance become the monarchy's public undoing? But that question would only grow louder at the heart of Windsor, inside the mansion that had now become both refuge and rebellion. From the outside, Royal Lodge looks like something out of a painting: ivy-covered walls, sweeping gardens, and the gentle calm of Windsor Great Park. But behind those pristine gates, the atmosphere is anything but peaceful. It's where the monarchy's most uncomfortable standoff now unfolds. A disgraced prince on one side and a furious institution on the other. After losing his titles, honors, and public role, Prince Andrew should have quietly faded into obscurity. But he didn't. Instead, he clung to Royal Lodge, the mansion that had become both his sanctuary and his symbol of defiance. Insiders say the king wants him gone. Charles believes the monarchy can't rebuild its reputation while Andrew still lives in royal luxury, one palace source revealed. But removing him isn't simple. Years ago, Andrew secured an exclusive, long-term lease on the property through a confidential Crown estate arrangement. It wasn't a regular contract. It was a privilege only a royal could have negotiated. Now that deal has become the king's biggest obstacle. Legally, Andrew can remain there for decades. Morally, his presence undermines every effort toward royal reform. To the public, it looks like the ultimate contradiction. A prince stripped of titles but still protected by wealth and walls. "You can't modernize the monarchy while sheltering its past," wrote one critic, echoing the national frustration. The tension inside Windsor grew unbearable. Meetings between royal advisors turned heated. One senior aide called the situation a slow, burning crisis that could outlast the king himself. And then came the family divide. Prince William, known for his calm diplomacy, reportedly reached a breaking point. Living just a short distance away at Adelaide Cottage, he couldn't ignore the optics. "It's a daily reminder of everything we're trying to move past." One insider quoted him saying, "He demanded action, firm, visible, and final." But King Charles hesitated. For him, the issue wasn't just political. It was deeply personal. Andrew wasn't an abstract scandal, he was his brother. For decades, they'd shared loyalty, loss, and the pressures of public life. Expelling him would mean turning private pain into global spectacle. But even compassion has limits. The monarchy survives on perception, one historian noted. And perception is now Andrew's enemy. To complicate matters further, Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's former wife, refused to abandon him. Though divorced, she continued to live with him at Royal Lodge, defending him in interviews and framing their unity as resilience rather than rebellion. Her unwavering loyalty divided opinion. Some saw it as touching, others called it dangerous. Every time she smiles for cameras beside him, one commentator said, "She reminds the world that disgrace still lives behind royal gates." For William, it was unacceptable. "This isn't about family anymore," he told advisors. "It's about the crown's survival." The standoff deepened. Royal lawyers examined the lease for loopholes. Officials whispered about alternative arrangements. Yet Andrew remained unmoved. "He's not leaving," said one source bluntly. "Not unless he's dragged out." Even Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, beloved for their warmth and restraint, felt the weight of the conflict. Friends described them as torn between filial loyalty and quiet humiliation. "They love their father, but every headline reopens the wound," a family friend explained. Behind closed doors, Royal Lodge became a fortress, not of dignity, but of denial. Charles refused confrontation. William demanded action. Sarah stayed loyal, and Andrew stayed silent. As one insider put it grimly, Royal Lodge isn't a home anymore. It's a siege. Through every headline, every controversy, and every cold glare from the public eye, one figure has remained quietly steady beside Prince Andrew: Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. Once cast out of royal favor for her own scandals, she has re-emerged as Andrew's most loyal defender. Yet those close to her say loyalty is only part of the story. Behind her calm smiles and carefully chosen words lies calculation, survival, and perhaps something far more strategic. When Andrew's titles were stripped and the palace turned its back, Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone. She publicly relinquished her remaining honors, claiming she wanted to focus on family and charity. But insiders say it was more than symbolism. It was a statement of solidarity, a message that she and Andrew would face the storm together, no matter what. "She's protecting him the way no one else will," one of her long-time friends said, but she's also protecting herself. In the months that followed, Ferguson transformed her image. While Andrew vanished from sight, she took center stage, appearing at charity events, speaking about mental health, resilience, and forgiveness. The public saw redemption. The palace saw calculation. Her approach was subtle but deliberate. She never denied Andrew's wrongdoings outright, but she never condemned him either. Every word was measured, every appearance rehearsed to suggest normalcy without defiance. "She knows the line better than anyone," one royal correspondent said. "She'll stand by him without sinking with him." But beneath that loyalty lies something more intricate: leverage. Rumors persist that Ferguson holds a trove of private letters, emails, and photographs collected over decades of royal life. Not blackmail, as some tabloids once hinted, but insurance. Proof of her closeness to Andrew, her knowledge of how the palace really works, and the quiet awareness that her silence has value. She's smarter than people give her credit for. Another source revealed, she's seen how quickly the palace abandons those who fall out of line. She learned to hold her cards close. Indeed, her silence has become her strongest weapon. When asked about Looney's allegations or Andrew's financial affairs, she deflects gracefully. "I'm focused on positivity," she says. "I believe in family." To the untrained ear, it sounds harmless. To those in the know, it's her way of saying, "I know more than I'm saying." Ferguson's strategy is survival through adaptability. She's rebuilt herself from outcast to media personality, from scandal magnet to sympathetic figure. Her charity projects, book tours, and interviews keep her visible, independent, yet still part of the royal narrative. And yet, insiders whisper that her connection to Andrew is not merely emotional or nostalgic. It's practical. Their shared residence, their intertwined finances, their mutual dependence, it all ensures that neither can truly move on without the other. "If Sarah ever walked away and spoke freely," said one former staffer, "the palace would tremble." For now, she remains loyal, not because of romance, but because of realism. She understands that in the royal world, silence isn't just protection, it's currency. And as long as she keeps it, she remains untouchable. But her quiet alliance with Andrew hides something even bigger: a network of money, influence, and protection that has kept him afloat long after the crown stepped back. Beneath the headlines of disgrace and denial, beneath the emotion and outrage, runs a quieter truth: the story of money. Royal author Andrew Looney insists that the true heart of this scandal isn't moral or personal, it's financial. During his years as Britain's special trade envoy, Prince Andrew moved within circles of extraordinary wealth. His official role was to promote British interests abroad, but Looney's research suggests a different reality, one where diplomacy blurred with private opportunity. The historian's notes, filled with dates, signatures, and figures, paint a troubling picture. There were introductions to foreign businessmen that led to private investments, gifts disguised as donations, properties purchased through obscure offshore channels, lavish renovations quietly funded by unnamed benefactors. These weren't coincidences. Looney says in one of his interviews, they were patterns, repeated deliberate patterns. He claims that behind Andrew's public missions, shadow agreements were often struck, agreements that benefited the man, not the nation. Deals that left no trace in official archives but appeared in whispers across financial circles. At one point, the National Crime Agency reportedly examined certain transactions linked to the Duke. But those inquiries, according to Looney, died quietly, buried under the weight of royal protection. The files he reviewed, many of them sealed, others heavily redacted, hint at a network of shell accounts and friendly intermediaries spread across Europe and the Middle East. He describes one case in particular where millions were transferred through a consultancy registered to a close associate of the Duke's. The purpose: trade promotion. The outcome: personal enrichment. These arrangements were hidden behind the kind of paperwork designed to look boring, Looney said. But that's where the truth always hides, in the dull parts of corruption. The irony, he adds, is that the palace's obsession with privacy may have helped enable it all. They mistake secrecy for dignity. "It's not the same thing," he told one journalist. To him, the financial story is the most dangerous part of all. Because money leaves trails, and trails can be followed. The historian isn't the only one who suspects financial wrongdoing. Former royal aides have spoken of unexplained, consulting fees, and foreign gifts that raised eyebrows but were never questioned. One recalled an incident where Andrew personally arranged a meeting between a wealthy Middle Eastern businessman and a UK corporation. An introduction that reportedly led to a personal payment to a charity tied to Sarah Ferguson. On paper, it all looked legitimate. In practice, it blurred the thin line between representation and profit. As one royal commentator put it, this isn't just about moral failure: financial, historical, and absolute. Even now, vast sections of official documentation remain sealed. Looney has repeatedly filed for their release under the Freedom of Information Act. Each time, his requests were refused. For reasons of national interest, the responses say. To Looney, that phrase is just another way of saying for reasons of royal protection. He believes that if those files were ever made public, they could reveal more than just individual misconduct. They could expose a culture, a system where influence was traded as casually as courtesy, and accountability was an afterthought. This isn't just one man's scandal, he warns. It's the shadow of an entire institution. And if the palace's silence once protected the monarchy, it may soon become the very thing that destroys it, because scandals fade. But numbers, they never forget. The scandal surrounding Prince Andrew isn't just about one man's downfall. It's about what it reveals of the crown itself. For decades, the British monarchy survived every storm by clinging to a simple truth: mystery protects power. But in an age where every secret leaks and every whisper trends, even that shield is cracking inside Buckingham Palace. The walls that once echoed with silence now tremble with unease. The older generation, King Charles, seasoned and weary, believes in endurance, in letting time, not words, heal wounds. But the younger heirs see it differently. For them, silence no longer means dignity. It means denial. Prince William, now the face of a modern monarchy, has been quietly reshaping the institution. He wants transparency, accountability, humanity. But those ideals come with a cost, and that cost might be family. He understands the throne can't stand on ceremony alone, said one palace observer. It has to stand on trust, and right now that trust is slipping. The House of Windsor faces its hardest reckoning in generations. Between Andrew's disgrace and Harry's rebellion, two sons of the Queen have redefined what royal scandal means, one through exposure, the other through defiance. Both, in their own ways, have forced the world to question what the monarchy truly represents. Even royal historians whisper a grim nickname, the Dukes of Hazzard, not as mockery, but as a reflection of how fragile the institution has become. The truth is, simple mystique no longer works. The royal family can no longer exist behind closed doors while expecting loyalty from those on the outside. People don't just want fairy tales anymore, they want accountability. As Looney himself once said in an interview, the monarchy has always been built on myth, but the internet has made myth impossible. The public that once looked at the crown with reverence now looks with scrutiny. Questions that were once whispered are now shouted. Why is this system still untouchable? Who gets to decide what the public should and shouldn't know? And perhaps the most haunting one, how many secrets remain buried behind those gilded gates? The future of the monarchy now depends not on ceremony or lineage, but on whether it can adapt, whether it can face truth without losing itself. Within palace walls, a quiet generational tension simmers. Charles seeks order, William seeks change. Between them stands a centuries-old legacy fighting to stay relevant in a modern world that no longer believes in inherited perfection. Looney's revelations, and the hidden files he promises still exist, have become more than a royal scandal. They've become a mirror, a reflection of a kingdom wrestling with its own conscience. Because if even the royals are bound by power and secrecy, what hope does truth really have? As the historian said with haunting clarity, we've only seen the surface. And that, perhaps, is the most chilling part of all. The crown may still glitter, but the light around it is dimming. Whether it shines again or fades forever depends on what comes next. So what do you think Andrew Looney's sealed documents might reveal? Could they finally expose the truth or shatter the last illusion of the modern monarchy? Tell us your thoughts below. And if you believe truth deserves the spotlight, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this story, just like history, is far from over.